in a sense, came to the door. It came in the form of terrorism. And in so doing, it seemed to obliterate other critical issues, namely social justice and environmental loss. Naturally, it is human nature to focus on immediate threats instead of the termites in the basement that are truly destroying our home, especially when we are those termites. In 1993, Samuel Huntington wrote in Clash of Civilizations that the vacuum created by the ending of the Cold War would unleash long-standing cultural conflicts that would dominate global politics. In my religious practice, we are taught that how we see the world is a reflection of how we see ourselves. If there is a clash, it is to my mind a clash of civilization, singular, calling to question whether civilization can endure or will be swept away by armies, money, corporate domination, and corrupt geopolitical powers. Regardless of the cultural differences that are played up on both sides as sources of propaganda and stereotyping, the Earth is in the midst of a massive resource war. It is not a cultural war. The powers that be on both sides would like nothing better than to have us to believe that this is a clash of culture. President Bush and Vice President Cheney announced 3 years ago an energy policy that would have made perfect sense 50 years ago, and in so doing committed this country to a path whose results we now see on our headlines. Instead of the environment, this administration has strengthened the corporate welfare system while asking children, rivers, animals, the poor, those with disabilities to engage in the free market capitalist system. While funding for every single environmental program in the federal government has been cut, there is a rider in the omnibus spending bill waddling through Congress right now. They would give Oldsmobile dealers $189 million over the next 10 years because GM has discontinued the model. This is a massive discontinuity in our world and our country. It is a shift from an outmoded, inefficient industrial system that is having a once-in-a-quarter-billion-year blowout sale of the early Carboniferous period, exhausting it out of tailpipes, thus ingeniously and rapidly double-glazing the planet. It is a shift to a system that reimagines and redesigns the relationship between human beings and resource systems, creating lifeways and technologies that radically reduce our footprint on Earth while simultaneously improving the quality of life for all people. An era is ending. A millennial-long effort has begun to create a civilization and economy that is conducive to life, because that is what life does. It creates the conditions that are conducive to life. And out there are thousands of institutions, small companies, and citizen organizations who are doing exactly that. C.S. Lewis wrote that what we call man's power over nature turns out to be a power exercised by some men over other men with nature as its instrument. What you are learning and what we are all learning is how to transform this world, to reduce our impact on nature by several-fold, to provide meaningful, dignified, living wage jobs for all who seek them, and how to feed, clothe, and house every person on Earth. What we don't know how to do is to remove those in power whose ignorance of biology is matched only by their indifference to human suffering. This is a political issue. It is not an ecological problem. The way to save the Earth is to focus, ironically, on people, and in particular to focus and to listen to those people who pay the highest price for the current industrial system. They are women, they are children, they are communities of color, and they are the localized poor. Chief Buckley in Nigeria told an international development conference, "If you don't share your wealth with us, we will share our poverty with you." The understanding of sustainability in the North is not yet meaningful to the world's poor. We cannot say to the South that we are sorry that their end of the lifeboat is sinking, but our end is doing pretty well. It was David Brower who said, "Environmentalists make terrible neighbors, but great ancestors." There are two different voices on the world resource stage, the voice of the wealthy and the voice of the poor. One is the minority, the other the majority. I believe the sustainability movement, without forsaking its understanding of agroecology, environmental science, conservation biology, must move from a resource flow model of saving the earth to a model based on human rights. The right to food, the right to livelihood, the right to one's culture, the rights of community, and the rights to self-sufficiency. Essentially, the sustainability movement must become a human rights movement. And what sustainability represents and stands for is improving the quality of life for all people on Earth. The only kind of sustainable development that makes sense is alleviating the suffering of and honoring all forms of life. The world is waiting for answers, and right now the main providers are fundamentalism, whether it be political, religious, or economic. I once visited an elementary school, and I mentioned that 1 billion people on Earth want to work and cannot. They are mostly fathers and mothers with children. A third grader raised her hand and asked me, "Is all the work done?" There has never been a time when more work has been needed to be done. How is it that we're the only species without full employment? Václav Havel said that we are on the brink of a new order if for no other reason the old order has become invalid. It is no longer valid to marginalize anything on Earth, whether it be a species, a wetland, a forest, a tribe, a culture, or a human being. We stem population growth by creating a world where every single child is welcomed and wanted. We honor our veterans by not creating new ones. We serve the future by saving all the parts, as Leopold reminded us very well. I believe the movement to create a just and fair society will prevail. Just as in single organisms, humanity can muster a collective immune response to resist political disease and economic infection. There are today 100,000 groups, citizen-based organizations, there are non-governmental organizations, there are volunteer organizations that address social and environmental loss. This is the world's largest movement. The U.S. supposedly is a superpower, but this is the other superpower. It flies under the radar of the media and politics because it is nonviolent and it is grassroots. It has no bombs, no armies, and no planes. It has no central ideology. There are no white, charismatic male vertebrates in charge, and thank God. During all the 20th century, big ideologies walked the landscape in armor and dominated our beliefs about what is possible. Capitalism, socialism, communism fought for control, and it hasn't been pretty. We believed, or were told to believe, that salvation was found in the domination of one of those systems. But you know from your studies of ecosystem stability and health that they are gained through diversity, not domination. This new, unnamed movement of which you are a part is the most diverse movement the world has ever seen. No one started its worldview. No one is in charge of it. There is no orthodoxy. It is global, it is classless, it is unquenchable, and it is tireless. And this shared understanding is arising spontaneously from different economic sectors, cultures, regions, and cohorts. And it is growing and spreading worldwide with no exception.